Anime has been known to carry deep and heavy topics. We look at some of the most popular animes like Naruto, One Piece, and Death Note and acknowledge the depth of those topics that are touched upon. Of course, there are the main plot points that are carried on throughout the show, but there are essential side plot points that leave a lasting impression on the viewer. And the same thing applies to the work of art that is Serial Experiments Lain. Now, before we continue, there are spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen this anime, I highly recommend watching it first. It is one of my personal favorites and is super accessible to watch, as you could find it on YouTube in both the dubbed and subbed versions. Now, I want to start off by highlighting the opening because it sets the tone for the entirety of the show. The very first line says, "And you don't seem to understand." Something that not only applies to the viewers as the show progresses, being unaware of the confusing and unfolding story, but also those that are around Lain. No one seems to understand not only just how lonely Lain is, but they don't understand Lain at all. Serial Experiments Lain is an anime that was created in 1998 by Chiaki Konaka and takes us behind the life of Lain, a junior high girl who is going through the motions of life as she lives it essentially on her own. Now, I know my fellow introverts out there can relate to this to some extent, but this is exactly who Lain is. She doesn't go out her way to be someone she isn't, or well, that's what it seemed like at first, until there was a shift thanks to something called The Wire. Now, The Wire is essentially the internet and is a pillar in the concept of Serial Experiments Lain. Just because of this, it makes the anime ahead of its time, as the premise of it continues to be more and more relevant as each year goes by. We are living in a day and age where we can connect with people across the world in a matter of seconds. I'm on Twitter and I've got some mutuals who live in Germany while I'm living in Canada, and I can interact with them in a matter of seconds. That wasn't a luxury when Serial Experiments Lain was created. The main difference between the internet and The Wire is that things in The Wire can develop in the real world. We see this through Lain's behaviors. The idea of changing one's persona online isn't anything new, and I'm sure many of you know someone who does this, or maybe you do it yourself. There's no shame in it. The internet allows us to step out and be someone who we usually aren't, or at least tap into the things that we want to express in person but are just either too insecure or too shy about. However, there can be flaws in doing this. In a sense, you're living two different lives, but in the case of Lain, are you really? Lain shows that these different lives are connected. On The Wire, Lain is revered as a god and is famous within the community. This is the complete opposite of Lain in the real world, as she is very timid, but eventually we see from Lain's actions that she is changing as a person. But as you soon come to find out as you watch, it is apparent that this isn't Lain who is changing, but only the persona that she has built on The Wire is becoming its own person in the real world. There become many different versions of Lain, but I wanted to look at a theory that applies really well to this situation: subjective idealism. This is the theory that I exist because you can see and perceive me, but when I'm alone, I don't exist. Now, if you don't get what I mean, think of the famous question, if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound? According to this theory, the answer would be no, because there's nothing there to perceive that the tree indeed did fall. The concept of subjective idealism is huge when it comes to Serial Experiments Lain. There are many lanes, but there also isn't, because there are only one lane that is being received. While Lain's following grew on The Wire, the people in the real world only began to perceive that version of Lain. The girl that we met at the beginning of the series ceased to exist. It was only during her interactions with Alice that we saw that same Lain we connected with from the beginning. This is where the sadness lies. Lain is only perceived when she is someone who really isn't her. Just when things are looking like Lain can attain the feeling of being loved and perceived by someone, through Alice is taken away when she commits suicide by erasing everyone's memory of her to fix all the damage she has caused. No memory equals no perception of her, therefore she never existed. This is something I want to touch on because it encapsulated exactly just how sad the life of Lain was. When it comes to suicide, many people do it with the intention of having those around them remember and empathize with them. In Lain's case, by her erasing everyone's memory, we the viewers are the only ones as proof that Lain ever existed. Everything Lain went through only exists within us. Lain started at the beginning of the show being alone and by herself and ended in the same position. The only difference is she had to go through the pain of forcing those that she cared for to forget about her, accepting that her life is destined to be in isolation. Or should I say that her life is only meant to be present in the mind of us, the viewers. Now, if you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button. It goes a long way. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Serial Experiments Lain. I know it isn't one of the most popular animes out there, but I do believe it is one of the best, and I would love to converse with you guys in the comments. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm super grateful for everything that you guys do as we're getting this page up and going, and it's been none other than your boy Nickeem, and I'll see you guys in the next one.